Helpline, helpline.
It's Rob, it's George, it's Casey, and Kyle. Come with a problem and leave with a smile. Every Friday at 3, come and join us as we help you with HubSpot. Open up your LinkedIn, just make sure you call in and leave a voicemail about HubSpot. Make your Friday divine with the HubSpot helpline.
Well, I think I'm going to let the music play out all the way. It's pretty good.
Yeah. Do it.
Guitar solo. And welcome back to the HubSpot helpline. I'm Rob, aka the Mayor of Inbound, joined with a lot of people in different places than normal. Casey is somewhere. I'll let her introduce that. Kyle, as I mentioned, he's backlit, but he's Kyle Jepson. He can do it, and he looks, in a very clean environment. Not going to give that away either. And George is just coming to us as George. The purple looks great. Chris is backstage running things. How are we feeling today on this Friday afternoon?
Great.
No flaws in this day. Nothing.
I feel like I'm being boring. I'm in the same place doing the same thing while other people are having adventures in different rooms and spaces and places.
George, if you told me that you were on the road somewhere and this was a mobile studio you brought with you, I would believe you.
Yeah, that would be fun, actually. That would be fun.
That we used to and still do. I say used to as if we don't, but we would steal each other's backgrounds and crop people out. And so in team meetings, we would all be in Brendan's office or someone else's room.
That's pretty funny.
It's a pro tip for making internal and external calls much more interesting. I've used that to my advantage many times. Other than let's ask everybody. Casey, you mentioned you're in a different spot, and it does look. Do you want to go into that a little bit before we get started with some helping out the community?
Yeah. So I am currently in a Love's gas station in Illinois. I made my friends get up and leave at 6:30 this morning so I could make it to my friend's house in St. Louis before this call. But here's the thing we didn't know when that happened is that we would drive by Casey, Illinois, which is home of the world's largest mailbox, the world's largest rocking chair, pencil, ruler, lot of oversight. There's a puzzle. There's a lot of very large, and I mean, it just it got rolling. We thought we could make it a stop short enough that we could still get there in time, but there were too many large things.
Blink twice if you're in danger. That's what we need to know. Are you safe? She's not blinking. I guess that's a good sign.
I also spent $100 today at a Casey company coffee shop because it was Casey Coffee Co., which my business name is Casey Co Marketing. So it just felt too close not to purchase everything in that store.
Yeah.
It kind of got out of control. I actually asked for the receipt because I was like, how did this happen?
So Rob, she's safe, but she's broke.
Safe but broke. That's every day of my life.
So if anyone wants to sponsor the show, now's the time.
Yeah. Casey, Illinois, you might want to turn back around and see if they'll, throw in. So largest, what you said, string cheese, golf ball, and then like largest area per capita of HubSpot knowledge potentially in the United States.
The largest HubSpot call-in show also.
Yeah, that might be good. I don't know if they do sponsorships for that kind of thing, but it wouldn't hurt to ask someone.
They also
imagine now, like gas stations where they have like the keychains with names on them, but they all just say Casey, and like a whole wall of mugs that just say Casey.
So
the most embarrassing thing that did happen though was I was at the coffee shop. I ordered my coffee, and they were like, "What name should we put on the order?" And I said Casey, and then I said CASE. I guess you got it probably.
That's what. Listen, since this is going out to the internet, since this is going out to the internet, I do have to say, if there is a true place on the planet and I say planet, that has the world's largest string cheese. Will somebody please let me know? Like I am a string cheese fan. Like
Interesting.
just pull in the little if there was a world's largest string cheese, I'm there.
There's
Yeah,
a
I just
lot
threw
of
that one
worlds.
out. I'm sure there's world's largest, a lot of stuff.
On a road trip I did through the heart of America, we came across the world's largest cow. It was a statue of a cow, but it was honestly like
it was a statue.
30, 40 stories tall. Like you could see it from miles away. Her name was Sue. We took a picture with Sue, but we saw that cow coming for a long time. We're like, that's a big cow. And then we saw a sign that was like, world's biggest cow. And we're like, yeah, I bet.
Looks like it.
Speaking of Sue, let's hope we don't get that by whoever. And let's dive into some HubSpot answers to voicemail. That didn't quite work. We're still messing out with the.
Look at Rob keeping us on task
You're
here.
trying. I was when we were in Casey, Illinois. I was like, I can't wait for the college show. This is going to be the entire show. So.
Like
it could be. Maybe we have some voicemails from some Casey's or from Casey, Illinois, or from wherever. Who is? I know Kyle, you're usually doing that. Do we have a screen ready? Do we have the first?
I do.
Plea for expertise pulled up and ready to go.
Yeah. Yep. So this is those of you longtime fans who remember our first ever episode. At the end, we sang "Happy Birthday" to Trisha. Trisha, are you here? She called in and said it was her birthday, so we sang "Happy Birthday." She actually did ask a question, but we were out of time. We didn't get to it, and we didn't circle back to it last week. So this week, we're circling back to it. We're ready? Here we go.
Let's go.
Hello there. This is Trisha Miriam. And, before I get to my question, tomorrow's my birthday. And it would be so great if y'all could wish me a happy birthday. That would just be that would be the best. That'd be the best gift. So there's that. I'm pausing so you can say it.
Happy birthday.
And
Part
then there's
one
my
complete
question,
already.
which is I'm working with an implementation that is integrated with Salesforce. And we do a lot of in paid search ad group level analysis on sort of pipe to spend, bookings to spend ratios of marketing efficiency. And when I look at how an ad group is doing, I'm usually rolling things up at a campaign level because that's about the right amount of granularity. No, misspoke. Not campaign level. It's a higher level. It's an arbitrary proprietary grouping of campaigns into something that makes it more logical and easy to understand. Campaign level is too granular. So I have campaign data going into both HubSpot and Salesforce. That's too granular. Account level is not granular enough. So we introduced a new field called campaign category. Those associations just live in a Google sheet. I ended up, it's a lookup, like if campaign value is X, put in ad category Y. I could not figure out how to do this without a developer in HubSpot. What's the dumbest way, with the most simplistic skills to achieve this in HubSpot? Couldn't do it in HubSpot, so I did it in Salesforce instead, because on the Salesforce side of things, I had a resource that could figure this out. Thank you.
This is not dead air. This is 4 people processing, I think.
So I'm just going to call out my assumption that I say this as a person who has never even seen the inside of Salesforce, but I assume we are going with the HubSpot definition of campaign and not the Salesforce definition of campaign, which is a different thing.
I think we're going with the Google Ads definition of campaign.
Oh, okay. See, all right, great.
The problem with the word campaign. Can I just tell you, anyway, I don't want to digress. Let's worry about the question.
I'll digress for us later, but yeah, let's worry about the question.
My understanding of the question is she has this campaign group custom grouping that she has in an Excel document that she would like to push and categorize people in HubSpot ideally. I don't think the Google Sheets integration does that. Like, I don't think you can pull from Google Sheets. You can only push to Google Sheets.
That may be
Well,
right.
Anybody?
So here's my question. If I just try to dumb this out, so she built a lookup table. That's basically what she's doing with the sheet, if I understand. So is it just as simple as, because I want it in HubSpot and I'm going from the not HubSpot data, but want to have it in HubSpot? Like, have we added the sheet to a dashboard to where you can just be in your HubSpot and actually engage with the sheet there potentially? Here's the other thing I will say. Whenever I hear somebody say HubSpot and lookup table, I usually go, because it usually turns into some type of HubDB project that, again, isn't really in HubSpot, but uses HubSpot functionality to maybe build something. Oof.
One of the
look,
words that go ahead, Kyle.
At bottom, what we're trying to do here is we're running ads and we're trying to figure out like price and ROI and like how are our ads doing, but we want to aggregate those together at some level. Is that, am I understanding correctly?
And it's a level that doesn't exist, right? Because in her call, she's literally like, yeah, you know those things, UTM content, UTM source, UTM medium, UTM yeah, that's too granular. And by the way, you know, companies like the accounts, that's too broad. So let me create a property right smack dab in the middle of those things. And
there are all kinds of vocabulary issues I'm having here, because when she said account level, I thought she meant like her HubSpot account or her Google Ads account.
Salesforce account.
Salesforce. It's like a company record.
Company, right?
Right.
So
I'm just lost on all kinds of levels.
So that's the other piece, right? There's terminology issues, campaigns and accounts could be, but also then my thing is you're literally creating something in the middle of two things to where you actually might typically, or most might have wanted to do the thing. And I'm sure there's good reason.
I have a couple ideas.
Ooh, I love it.
Great.
One, which is I think kind of what George you're getting to. Can you restructure the campaigns so they make sense? Why do the campaigns have to be? I mean, obviously restructuring a Google Ads account is not like an easy endeavor, but if that seems like the path of least resistance and the most value, if you're already saying you're using the campaign groups anyway. The reason there's ad groups in theory is to give you that more granular level. So idea number one. Idea number two, Zapier. So hold on.
Uh-oh, I feel like there's
Chris.
She said, share my
screen. Can you share my screen? Thanks. So you can, with the native HubSpot Google Sheets integration, you could push data into Google Sheets. Then you could use a lookup table in Google Sheets to populate your group tab, your HubSpot group tab. And then you can add them to a contact list. There's some other things. I didn't see edit record, but it seems like you should be able to edit a record. People be popping in here, sorry. So I think you could add them to a contact list based on their group and then enrich their data based on that contact list as well. Have I lost truly everyone?
No, you didn't lose me, but you did make me start to think about, like, do we even know from the question what the success looks like? Like,
I don't think so.
What's the outcome that we're trying to get based on the question?
Because I think that was the biggest part. From the single oddest word in all of that was she said rolling things up at a non-campaign level. We do that in an arbitrary proprietary level that makes it easier to understand. arbitrary I don't think would ever be easier to understand the reason why, like what it is you're trying to measure and what success would look like. And George, you already mentioned the campaign. Like what actually is that? Is it an ad group? Is it a Salesforce definition? Is it the Google Ads definition of the word?
Listen, even worse. Is it an email campaign? Is it a social campaign? Is it an inbound campaign? Yeah, it's all of those. Okay, thanks. Great. Like,
I'm sad I'm not seeing comments from Trisha because she was here last week. If we had gotten to this, I bet we could have gotten some clarification.
Yeah. Because my brain also does go in another world of like, if the outcome is to take these things and then to bucketize them in a certain way, like we've done that in workflows where we're like, if UTM parameter contains XYZ, then set this property to X. And like, so I wish I knew a little bit more of the end result success piece of this, but fun one.
Yeah, I mean, the definitions, we've mentioned this on several of these calls, is like more context, specifically linguistically, so that we can figure out what they're trying to get out. Is it return on ad spend? Is it return on the entire campaign spend? You want to parse down those things and segment out so you can see which piece of content or which whatever associated with the campaign is having the most impact versus other things that are not. So it's there's a theme with this. Number one, people need help, and number two, there needs to be some standardization for clarity just among a lot of these definitions that we've gotten during the questions and during the asks. I have thought Chris would have snuck in to tell us how right or wrong, give us feedback on the answer. Oh, here, look.
No, don't summon him. It's too early in the show.
We need a like a summoning Chris sound effect, like.
I would just say that arbitrary and proprietary probably means like this is a target audience or a target vertical that we have decided is important to our business. And it's the same motion towards that group. It could be product lines too. That like, so let's say that were the case. In that it's not like there's no LinkedIn industry designation that's going to help us. It's our products. Like, let's say it's this group of products. We know these ads work. But for whatever reasons, I guess we're splitting them up, Casey, in Google Ads. Like, that's the part. Like, why is
that was my understanding of it.
Is it just like
was for
get
some
better
reason
at Google Ads? Which is a lot of people need that advice, like when they're doing Google Ads. I mean, there's some messy Google Ads portals, but that's where arbitrary, like the company has decided this is the bucket, like to George's point, right? It's very easy to go that route from a product perspective or from a, this is the way we define our target market perspective.
Yeah, I mean, my immediate question is why are campaigns too specific? Saying that though, I actually do have a client who has 3 distinct industries that they target. Chris doesn't care. 3 distinct industries that they target. And some are display ads, some are search ads. You can't put those all in one campaign. So I wonder if it's something like that. Like they want all of the EDU ads, all of those campaigns, even though they're different campaigns, in categorized together in this custom field, is my understanding, that she's using called campaign group. And I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The other thing I wonder is if you're collecting the UTM campaigns, or even, you're just using the latest source properties, you can use those campaigns, and like you can use an if then branch in HubSpot to map them based on your you could use an if then branch to map them to your campaign groups. That way it depends how many campaigns you're running, how realistic that is. You could probably do a custom coded action too. I'm not a custom coded action person. I've given it I've given it the college try multiple times. Me and ChatGPT have not cracked that code yet, but so I'm still in the if then branch club, but that might be an option too.
So I mean, there's a couple recurring themes. What I would ask the 3 and 3.5, Chris is half in, half out. What I would ask you guys is like, is there a best practice for campaigns? Yes or no, and what is that? Because even the arbitrary stuff is like, are you testing? Is this a new motion or new like? It shouldn't be arbitrary. Like if you're going for 3 different verticals or industries, you should have data on why those are the people you're going for and targeting for said campaign. So is there like an element of simplicity of before you start thinking about granularity versus high level, let's check these foundational elements and understanding of campaigns and then kind of re-educate there. This is less specifically to Trisha in the question and more to a lot of what we've gotten thus far. Again, she's been here since day one, which was long ago. But a lot of what are getting with a lot of these questions requires more contextualization. Why is that? Is it really that every single business and every single use case is that different and needs that much specificity? Or are there certain things that are, we'd say, like universally accepted as do this, not that?
Well, I think many businesses are more differentiated than they think they are. I've had so many clients be like, so do you work with other accountants? Yeah. Sweet. Can you just hand me all the stuff the other accountants are doing so that we can just put that in our portal? And I'm like, no, we can't, because we need to wrap HubSpot around your business, not their business. And so are there best practices and are there, yes, obviously you can Google any XYZ best practices and find an article, right? But I do think that you have to understand that there are major and minor differences that organizations need to pay attention to, especially when it comes to implementing HubSpot or building HubSpot around what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Anything to add, Kyle or Casey? Trisha, if you're watching, by the way, Chris may be able to get you into the call so you can provide some more clarity. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, go ahead.
I agree with George. I also think, I mean, in this specific question, we are also talking about Google Ads best practices in addition to like HubSpot best practices, in addition to Salesforce best practices, really. And we all know all of that depends on who you're talking to. A portal I set up is going to look different than the portal George sets up, because I have different naming conventions than George does. I don't prioritize personas as quickly as I should, things like that. So while yes, there's best practices, I think there's priorities and there's also preferences that are going to be different depending not only on the business, but also the individual, the human, if you will, working in the business and in the systems.
Yeah.
And I'm still just caught up on starting with the end in mind, right? Like, is there a particular pretty report you're trying to get out of this? And like, if by campaign you mean HubSpot campaign, like you mentioned campaign category, you can create custom campaign properties. So you could create a campaign category property, and then campaign data is available in the custom report builder. Is there some sort of chart with some sort of metrics broken down by a custom campaign category property that gets you there? Or is that not it at all, right? You're talking about Google Ads campaigns and you're talking about Salesforce accounts, and everything I just said is completely irrelevant. Just sounds like gobbledygook to you. But I really think if you know what that output is, the thing you're trying to get, the thing that will enable you to make whatever business decisions you're trying to make, starting with that and working backwards is much better than here's what we have, what can we do with it?
So Kyle, first of all, you just like launched my brain into a direction that I have to share. Like I'm curious if when Trisha said we created a property, if it's like a custom property, a deal property, and wasn't even thought to be a campaigns property. So one, but two, if you did like a campaign property, custom property, the idea of then being able to create a view of those campaigns based on category, and then because you had a view based on those campaigns and that category, being able to actually compare campaigns
Right.
of that category, like, and
And
the juiciness you'd see there.
that's another thing. One thing I've noticed, a lot of people coming from Salesforce and other CRMs, when they come to HubSpot, they're like, I need to build a report of this. And in HubSpot, we're like, oh, that thing you're calling a report, we call a view. And you can just like that is an instantaneously filterable thing you can just make in a couple of clicks. It takes much less engineering than you're imagining. And so maybe it is even as simple as that, George. Maybe it's just, I need a list of my campaigns with this campaign category property, and I want to filter and sort by that.
Yeah.
That is a thing you can do.
Still goes back to
Trisha-
standardization of nomenclature, right?
Yeah,
Like, that's another,
Without a doubt. So I got to throw one hack out here because we're talking about ads, and let me be completely honest, I'm really not the ads guy. So like Casey's being honest and vulnerable. She's like, I'm not the custom coded workflow gal. Well, I'm not really the ads guy. I'm like I've been a fan of like pure inbound before ads crept in. And listen, there'll come a day I'll probably run some ads. That's fine. But one thing that I have been teaching for years that I know a lot of HubSpot users don't do, that I think is very interesting to do from a reporting and visualization standpoint, is actually create 5 custom single line properties called UTM source, UTM medium, UTM term, UTM content, and then put those in your forms as hidden fields, because it will automatically extract the UTM parameters and put them in the properties. And now think about the way that you can slice and dice your ad information, where you want to just see it based on this medium term that you've used across 7 different ads, and then compile that together. Like, if you're not using hidden fields and creating those in your HubSpot portal and you're running ads, do that. Well, Monday. Do that Monday.
Yeah, don't try to put it together this afternoon.
Yeah. George, you're totally right. And I'm actually mad I didn't immediately say that. Yeah. That's actually one of the first things I check for in portals, is whether or not they have those UTM hidden fields, whether or not they're running ads right now or not. Because it'll get referral data, it'll get social data, it'll get anything like that. And to be honest, if you do it first, like early in your HubSpot experience, then you can just clone the forms that have them. It tends to be a kind of pain to go back, especially if you have hundreds of forms, which some people do, and add those hidden fields.
Yeah, no, it's a pain in the butt.
this is part of what I was asking, and that this is a pretty good example of that. Or are there some things that are just universal? This seems like possibly one of those. Why don't more people do this, George? Is it once they get, to Casey's point, to a certain level of having 150 for whatever it is, that it's just too much work and like it's too much minutia to go back and do? But why don't more people do that? You said, find it interesting that a lot of people, even though I've been teaching this for a long time, don't use that.
One, typically the first thing there goes like, oh, you mean I don't need a developer to do that? Like, there's no code needed. And I'm like, there's no code needed. Second, I just don't think they think about it, because they're under this assumption, because HubSpot has done a really good job of like giving you a lot of information. So you'll see original source and ads. So you'll see like a lot of stuff. But it's just this next level of granularity. And here's the other thing is, like, ads for a lot of mere mortal humans, kind of confusing. Like, it's just kind of a little black box that you're not sure, and you hope it works. And all of a sudden you're either spending money or you're printing money. Those are kind of the 2 outcomes. And so I just don't think they think about it or understand that it's even a thing that's possible. But every time I've taught it, people are like, yep, well, let's make sure we're doing that on every form. But not to mention, it helps with like a whole referral thing. Anyway, I digress. We got other questions, I think.
Yeah, should we move on?
Let's get to voicemail number 2. Trish, shout out, thank you, happy belated 2-week birthday again, or however long we've been doing this. Let's get to the next question and see if we can help out.
All right, here goes.
Hi, my name is Camille Bosley. I'm calling in with some questions about HubSpot's new ChatGPT features. I know that they had some integrations before, and now it is actually directly inside the platform. And I'm just curious how you guys are using it to make your day-to-day lives a little bit easier, more efficient. Would love any tips and tricks that you have. Thank you.
Amazing. I'll just hop right in and talk about, I'm glad she highlighted we had integrations before. A question I have not been getting is what's the difference? And I don't know why people haven't been asking me that.
I've been asking George and Chris this, so
maybe it's apparent to a lot of people, but that was my initial question out the gate. So previously, our integration with OpenAI meant that in workflows, you could send information to ChatGPT and get information back. And I believe if you had like a custom GPT built, you could send it specifically to that and get it back. But it was only within the context of workflows. The new ChatGPT connector we just worked with OpenAI to launch, this is, you're outside of HubSpot. You are in ChatGPT. You're going to do some deep research, and there's a little drop-down thing with connectors, and you can just turn switches on and off, right? HubSpot is one of the things you can connect. You can connect Box if you've got files over there. You can connect, I don't know how many there are, but you can connect all those and then ask deep research questions like, based on the content here and the data there, what do you think about this? What should I do about this? And so what I'm seeing, I know what HubSpot has done is we've connected and we've asked questions about like what records are probably duplicates or invalid or outdated. And we have found a lot of records we were otherwise missing that were just kind of stuck in the nooks and crannies of our own HubSpot account. And that's kind of the difference, right? We're not talking about an automated workflow that's triggering on a regular basis. We're talking about you sitting down with ChatGPT and having a conversation about your HubSpot data, having it research and ponder on it and give recommendations the same way it used to just do with the internet. So.
Yeah, I hope everybody understands the difference of the words coming out your mouth right now: action versus research. Because like, the difference between an action that
I was going to ask you, so sorry to interrupt, but I'm legitimately, I just typed that as like, what is the difference?
Yeah. Like action, single action over and over and over and over again, right? Versus like research. Like, so like you have to understand, like ChatGPT has got, you know how hard it is not to say my initials, GBT, when I said, anyway, it's gotten really smart. So like, you got to think about things like data analysis, right? You even mentioned the nooks and the crannies, like the things that we just fundamentally can't see or would take us a lot of time, because with deep research, like it's getting in there and it's looking at all the things that would take us hours to look at, and it's making assumptions and decisions in mere minutes. And I'll tell you, for me, one of the things that was quite eye-opening, because I've had this HubSpot portal that I'm in back when I worked with Marcus Sheridan at the Sales Lion, because I like started my own little like tiny thing with a tiny portal and doing stuff just to have a test area. And along the way, there's been like, I did a whole properties cleanup based on me actually asking it some deep research questions and being like, I forgot that I created those 10 years ago. Like, let me go clean those up. And then all of a sudden that action from that research led me to like, oh, well, it's attached to those and I don't need those anymore, which is attached to these, which I don't need those anymore. And I lost, in the best way possible, about 3 hours of my day based on the nooks and cranny that deep research with ChatGPT and my portal did.
So yeah, I would say if you want to think about differences of use cases between the two, an action is something that's going to be done regularly with a particular record in your CRM, right? So I can imagine you have like some contact us form or like your meeting scheduling page or whatever. Someone books time with you or reaches out or whatever through this form. That triggers a workflow. We're going to look up that person's company and we're going to ask ChatGPT, I'm going to have a call with this person soon. Give me some talking points. What are some interesting things their company has done? What's the weather like where they live, right? And ChatGPT is going to give you this and drop it into a property or put it on a note on the record. And every time that form gets submitted, we're going to ask ChatGPT that exact same question and we're going to store the answer on a particular record. With the connector, you're going to sit down and it's going to be much more open-ended. You're going to say, here's my data. What are some personas I should be considering that I haven't thought of? Or like, what are some industries where I'm overspending on my ads, right? Or like, look at my deals for the last 6 months. What patterns do you notice? What's working, what's not? And it can analyze all your data and come back and say like, your sales team needs to ask more questions or something. Like, I don't know what it'll say. It depends entirely on what your data looks like. But that's kind of the difference. Rob, do you feel better about?
Well, I wanted to do a couple things here and use some whatever host power I have. One is this. I thought Chris would have been summoned already. So if we need this as a sound effect, Chris, whenever this question was asked, how are you not already here? So that's one. Two is a new segment presented by our sponsor, Profoundly Going Up. I literally just hand wrote this because I have been, this seems like in the HubSpot ecosystem and kind of the bubble of knowledge, like a very two-sided, like polarizing type of thing. One is like, oh my gosh, all this data that we like, the deep research, the possibilities of taking unstructured data to structured data. That's one side. The other side is, Kyle, you just said this, but here's my data. Is it your customer's data? So the security, privacy, opening up the black box, like that type of thing. So rapid fire, deep research to the layperson. Is it okay, or is it like comparable? Correct me, to think of it as like training, like rapid training GPT with the data that's in your system so that it then understands and can ask that, or is training more so on a much larger scale that's more generalized?
Training. I wouldn't say training. Here's what I would say. I would say rapid context. And let me explain what I mean, right? Even when I'm creating content, many times I'll do something like, hey, I'm thinking about writing an article on XYZ for ABC. What are the top 3 problems that they might be facing? And you'll get the like quick answer. Oh, sweet. Now do deep research on these 3 things, and I'll turn deep research on. By the way, I'm totally not talking about HubSpot right now, but take what I'm teaching to that level. And then I'll do deep research on that, and I'll get deep research context into the conversation. And now I'll say, okay, here's what I'm thinking for the outline. What would you add or remove from the outline to get the best teachability for this article? Now it's got the context of the deep research in the conversation that I'm actually having. Okay. Now I move forward. So when you think about this from a HubSpot side, it's immediate context to deals or contacts or whatever it is that you're looking. The other thing that I hopefully most people are paying attention to, or some people are paying attention to, is like the whole Frame.ai acquisition. And what you started to mention, Rob, is like structured and unstructured data. And what ChatGPT and these connectors or MCP with Claude or whatever you decide to use, what this enables you in a world of unstructured data to actually turn into structured or have conversations around based on being able to pull that context or that research into what you're trying to work on. God, I could go.
Yeah. Chris is not here yet somehow either.
I gotta say this one thing, because I got to bookend my day, or else I'm not going to sleep tonight. I started out this morning on a podcast with Chris and Nico about AI. And I leaned into this level of the world that we're moving into, the power of questions. And even when Kyle was talking and he's asking all these questions, and he even said something like, listen, ladies and gentlemen, you are moving into a world that you should be very comfortable with asking any question that you want to ask and be okay with whatever answer comes back. Because it might not be what you want, but it's at least something you can learn from and move forward. So ask the dang questions and get good at asking questions. And listen, sometimes we have historically had a hard time conversating or asking questions with humans. If that has been you, please learn the new soft skill of asking questions with humans and asking humans with your assistants, because it will be a superpower in the future for you.
Yeah, going back, getting directly at the legal and privacy concerns, Rob. Let me I'm sure HubSpot legal team would appreciate me saying, none of us here are lawyers. We're not giving legal advice on this show. That's not what we're doing. And I see the comment in the chat. You're waiting on your CSM to get the legal stuff from HubSpot so your legal team can review it. Yes, as a business leader, owner type person, that is your responsibility. Don't skip that step, right? But where I get a little puzzled, I get a little ruffled in some of the hubbub on LinkedIn and other places about HubSpot and your data to ChatGPT, and they're just going to sell it and use it to make ads and things. Is like people in those conversations will say, here is a quote from OpenAI's privacy statement that explains they will not use the data in this particular way. And people will respond with, yeah, but you can't trust them. It's just like, who am I to say whether or not that's true, for one thing? But if you are going to do business in the world, if you are going to use technology in the world, at a certain point, you have to trust something, right? And so, bring your lawyers in and have them review whatever legal stuff HubSpot gives you and have them give you a recommendation and follow that. But even then, you're just trusting your lawyers. And who trusts lawyers, right? Like, at a certain point, our skepticism needs to have some bounds, right? Like, it is possible that if you are a trusting person, if you're an overly trusting person, you will get taken advantage of in this world. Okay, we can accept that. But if you are not trusting of anyone or anything, don't be in business. Don't deal with people. Go be a hermit in the woods, right? Don't have any technology at all. And I'm not saying give big corporations the benefit of the doubt. We have seen that go awry. And I don't mean to minimize the importance of privacy and legal if you're running a business. But don't go the extra mile of giving yourself things to worry about either, right? Do your due diligence, do what responsibility dictates, and then make your decision and go with it.
I need an amen button. I need an amen button to everything Kyle said, and I'll put a flag, a stake in the ground, whatever saying you want to use. I have not and will not connect any of my clients' portals to the connector. I've only done mine and tested mine because of any of those ramifications. Also, I'll throw this last piece out there and I'll shut up. Kyle, you said about trust. My grandpa once told me there's an easy way to see a man who doesn't trust anything. And I was like, really, Grandpa? He's like, yeah, let me tell you the secret. You can always tell a man who doesn't trust anything in the world because he wears a belt and suspenders.
That's does anybody wear suspenders anymore? I haven't seen them in
I've been thinking about bringing them back.
There we go.
If anyone could do that, you could.
My 6-year-old wears suspenders sometimes, and man, he pulls it off. He looks great. I
love it.
My wife is not excited, but if when I return after my parental leave later this year, I'm wearing suspenders, I will have achieved some sort of victory in my life.
I think we can get back to voice. I wanted to ask one other thing. I had 3 questions, and 2 of them were knocked out in the same vein by both of those responses. But for people, this is a shout out to Kyle and George for noticing this. I think, Kyle, you said it first. Missing data in nooks and crannies, aka unstructured data. Can you give a better example of this? And the specific question is in RP and RevOps. We know that if we can move a conversion point or conversion rate from stage 1 to 2 by percentage points, 2 or 3 or 4 percentage points, that has massive revenue potential. And so if you're thinking about 2 or 3 percentage points, whenever there's a field or a property that maybe has a typo in it and it's not pulling that, but it would be another indicator. Is that more so what unstructured to structure is talking about?
I can give you a great example.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, I type stuff wrong all the time. And what I love about ChatGPT is it understands, yeah, you're stupid, but we know what you meant. We'll go ahead and do the thing that you wanted to do. So here's the thing. Historically, when we talk about self-attribution, people will try to force it into a drop-down select because they want to be able to report on it easily. Unstructured data means I can actually live in a world where I can give them a message box and let them type all that they want to type because I can have.
How did you hear about us? Oh, well, I was talking to Bobby across the street and he told me that his sister used you guys. And so.
Yep. And so now I don't have to be forced in a drop-down select. I can let them tell the story and I can get ChatGPT, the connector, the deep research to truly give me out of the unstructured data the real answers. Because by the way, this is usually where I talk about how HubSpot is great, but HubSpot lies to us because it's either original source or not original source. It's either organic, referral, email. Nowhere in my sources data does it say Bobby at the Lunch and Learn. And when you do self-attribution, you'll literally see like so-and-so told me about you. And then it'll be like direct traffic. And you're like, you're lying to me. But back to your point, Rob, we can just let them spew and the system can figure it out. And by the way, we're talking about ChatGPT. Let's not miss that Copilot was just rebuilt from the ground up, and that now you can ask it a lot smarter questions right in HubSpot around some of the stuff that we're talking about as well. Anyway,
that was my question. What's the difference between the Ask Breeze action in workflow specifically? There's Ask Breeze, there's the ChatGPT integration, and I think there's a Claude one. Is it all just what AI tool you're asking?
Yeah.
Different tools. Yeah.
My follow-up was, I think I like how you like the TLDR from drop-down select to open text. Does that put like, how do you think that will go? I think I love that because it puts the questions more about like, you're going from pre-segmented and pre-architected to like in the moment. Does that put the onus more on the customer? Will they like it? I mean, from your exact point, it's like LinkedIn. That could be any number of things and any number of pathways to conversion that are, I think, incredibly vital to have the context on. But a drop-down select versus open text, are they going to fill all of that out? I mean, can you go through that a little bit, George? With what
if I can, before George goes, I will just say, of all the form fields I fill out on a regular basis, how did you hear about us is the one that drives me crazy the most, because it's usually like 5 options and none of them is exactly right. You know, but it's a required field, and so I just choose something.
Well, I have a question for you. Kyle. 99% of the time, do you just pick the top choice?
No. I try to pick the one that's closest, but I will say sometimes, like, honestly, there was I wish I could remember what it was. I was filling out someone's form recently, and it was like, I don't know, some HubSpot partner I've known for 10 years or some company I've been working with in my personal life for a long time. And like, they had that question on the form and it was like, are you kidding me? At this point, I honestly don't remember. I've been your customer forever. Like, I don't know, you know? And it just like, now
you're barking up 2 different things, right? So one, when you're doing self-attribution in the way that I'm talking about, Rob, where it's like a message box or it's multi-line text, you make it required. So they have to give you the information. But the thing that Kyle's barking into is, by the way, what you could be doing is once that's known, you don't nearly need to know it again. So it could be a dependent field and use the like queued thing where it hides it, even if there's no queued fields in the legacy form, right? So like, that's one thing that, again, I think people miss is like, I only need to ask persona once and I only need to ask self-attribution once. And then I can make those disappear and go away and never be seen again. So many people will just have them on every form, which to Kyle's point gets annoying as a customer experience.
I was distracted that Trisha has entered the chat.
Trisha has reappeared.
You might need to figure that out. But I did want to follow up with this, and we can move to a new voicemail or try to get Trisha in here, which is, this is a good quote, but brand and brand authority and all that's a much separate conversation. We had one of these recently, and the answer was basically, how haven't I heard about you? Right. So like multi-select, that was really positive to, somebody in marketing and demand team that's like, yay. And so the need to like, to your point, Kyle, is like, at this point, I don't even remember, like, where'd you hear about State Farm? Everywhere on every commercial TV station I've ever heard of. It just so happened to now be like, I had a problem with my, insurance, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you'd be able to do that.
Yellow pages.
I mean, I'll take that all day long. Like, let's set that up. I think it's important. It's one of those technical corrections, maybe, Rob, you're looking for me to chime in on. What George is describing is still a little bit structured because we're making a field in the CRM for that to go in, and unstructured. Like, a lot of the value we're going to get from Frame.ai is being able to take the context from call recordings and emails and meetings and
Yeah,
anything that
tickets
exists
are
on a
automatically
record.
categorized now, right?
Right.
Like ticket topic. That's just a thing.
Yeah. Open text
Ticket
is like the
topic
bridge.
identification.
Yeah. Open text is like the bridge to get there. And I do think this is super important use case, right? Because this is something that marketers with HubSpot, should they choose to do this, this is an immediate upgrade from your drop-down list at no extra cost to you right now, where this is a workflow. This is one of the first use cases that everybody was, shouting from the mountaintops how happy they were when Ask Breeze came out, right? So the first step is actually giving people an open text field to say exactly how did you hear about us, right? We've also set up a property that's normalized version. So we do want to bucket that stuff at some point, right? And
HDYHAU is how did you hear about us? I'm caught up now.
yes, yes, thank you. It kind of gets awkward when you start like spelling that out everywhere. So what we have is an Ask Breeze action that says, hey, you're an expert in demand gen. Take the response in the open text field and classify it into these categories. Here's how you do that. And when I first tried this, and again, this is the mindset that we talk about on our AI shows all the time. Like, it didn't work. And since I like AI, I like to learn AI, I assumed I was doing something wrong. Sure enough, I was. And as soon as I fixed it, it was 100% accurate, right? This is like one of the best use cases if you're not using AI yet to get started with. But then taking it a step further, right? After we branch here, I ask Breeze again and say, hey, if there's a name in there, I'm going to put that, like a proper name, I'm going to put that in a referral field, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, this open text field becomes really reportable on a lot of the things that people have been begging to report on for a long time.
Yeah, Trisha just mentioned job titles, right? Like,
right.
Let's standardize those.
And this one, like the first one was pretty engineered. A lot of people like centered on this, so it was easy to like just plug and play. This one, I typed up a couple paragraphs that I thought makes sense, and it worked well enough. And then if we engineer it, it gets better and better. And I think to George's point, I think George made this point, like Breeze, right? Because what the original question was, what the difference is between this OpenAI connector where we're plugging into the back end of your API at OpenAI, which most lay users are not even touching, right? If you want to use this in workflows, there's an Ask OpenAI, just like there's an Ask Breeze and there's an Ask Anthropic. That does not interact with the front end user interface of the system, which we see on the right here, which is where it's kind of hard to see, but when you activate deep research, you can get HubSpot as a source, right? So these do not, as far as I know, even if you're using the same OpenAI account, they're not interacting at all, right? So they're different, like one's in the back end, one's in the front end, if that helps think about that. But if you haven't like done this here, like in the middle here, to see like Copilot, like check it out, folks. Like the rebuild is amazing.
Looks pretty sweet. Trish said that's genius, by the way. And he's gone. We summoned him away. I know we're coming up on time. I wanted to ask one. I'm trying to do my best, George B., but I can't get my mic into the shot. But the unstructured also has another element for me, and it's less about the data or form or property, but to give some context, imagine you're filling out one of these contact us forms, right? We get them a lot, and it says kind of whatever the first thing was, like HubSpot partner agency. Yeah, but we need to know the story. So you get onto a call, like 3 days later, and you ask somebody. You ask the sales rep, Matt, Vinny, shout out, hey, a little more context on how you heard, whatnot, and they share the story, right? There's two things that happen here. One is it's unstructured versus structured in terms of like the customer's timing and the buyer's journey. Maybe doing that was just like rudimentary, and they were checking a box and doing whatever, kind of like Kyle said, like it's his least favorite thing ever, because usually he just picks whichever one is more applicable. But once they get into the call and they do a little more research on RP or whoever you are, they realize they've been seeing your content and reading one of your like SMEs that post stuff for months now. So there's that element of like unstructured for the actual linguistic reporting and some of the options you have versus unstructured in terms of timing. Why do they need to declare right away? It'd almost be a better question, like after call, when did you determine that we were vendor of choice or a top 3 in this process? And what you would get then is like, well, I mean, it was versus you and whoever had all the accreditations, badges, the requirements to be here. But the guys, the way that you ran this and delivered from a, operational standpoint, isn't that important to know that that's what helps to like win deals for services or otherwise? So is it fair to think of unstructured in terms of not only the data and data types, but the timing of them being able to tell you what worked? We can think about that one more.
I'm also thinking about like, I think this opens the door to a lot of different fields on forms that marketers don't use now. Like the one that I'm thinking of is, it's pretty common that people ask like, how soon do you want to buy, or something like that on a form. That's a leading question, obviously, especially depending on like what you're like maybe you're downloading something and then you're like, what do you want to buy? And you're like, yo, I'm just down, like calm down. But I wonder if there's now things marketers can put on, like open text fields that people can put on forms that then can be kind of used with AI to kind of backpedal into whether or not they're in a buying phase or researching phase, things like that.
I'm asking that from experience, because as now somebody that's seen both the front and back end, like maybe not as much as what Kyle does, but if it's something that's asked in a good way, I'll go out of my way to like tell a story, because it's important to their team. I would like to think it's impactful. And I've seen that in B2B specifically, when the person, the POC is in marketing. We had one that came in from TikTok with a note that, is a separate email. It was like, I just wanted to fill this out and let your marketing team, demand team know that like this was great. And it's why I submitted, which is incredibly valuable insight. I know we've gone down a rabbit hole there a little bit. George, you look like you've got something, but he's on mute again.
Hang on, let me unmute. So I'm stuck back on Chris's call transcripts, unstructured data example, because like I want people to think about this for a hot second, because it's somewhere where my brain, and I've been talking to Jorge from my team about this as well. Think of unstructured data as like a transcript of a call with a client that you put into HubSpot as a note, or if you have like something where we use Avoma, right? And all of a sudden it puts all of that information in a note after a meeting's over. And then being able to actually use Copilot to ask like, hey, based on this transcript that is now a note, or based on this like stuff that's been put into the notes, can you tell me what's the sentiment of this customer over the last 7 meetings that I've had with them? That's where I think it gets real sexy real fast, because now there's all of this like true conversational data inside your CRM to be able to ask questions that truly matter on the human side of things, not the transactional side of things.
100%. And that, just thinking of how long it would take to build an Excel sheet with all of those recordings and parse that out is beyond difficult. But being able to ask GPT or whatnot to analyze all of the recordings from different people and ask if there's any trends or any, like, you almost think of like the word heat map charts. It's like, what word do you say the most often? That could be an interesting way of getting some feedback as far as social proof on whatever part of the buying, selling process you're referencing. Yeah.
The word is automagical, by the way. That's the word I say.
Automagical. Yeah. I've heard it several times, even throughout this call. Kyle, we have 1 minute. Is there another birthday wish that needs to go out, or is there another well-wishing or whatnot that we need to do before we sign off on this Friday afternoon?
No, our final call is 1 minute and 39 seconds long, so I don't think it's going to fit in.
Received. We can tackle that first thing next week.
It is
also.
Trisha, is this you again?
We have to get her into, adding another segment or adding another feature. I think next week is we maybe bring Trisha or somebody in live if possible. Chris, that's a note for you from the production team.
And
it needs to happen automatically, by the way.
Theoretically, next Friday is my last day in the office before I welcome a new baby to my family. But babies do what they want, so there is a chance I'm not here.
Hey, congratulations, by the way.
Congrats.
I think what we have to do is, number one, congrats. We hope you're here, but we hope the baby's happy, healthy, mom, family's happy, healthy. The second thing is, Chris, I don't know if you have an orange hat to like stand in. Then you could be on screen the whole time and be here, and then only depart whenever you're angry with us, which would be, I think, good content, funny.
I will say I'm confused by the whole like Chris not being on screen thing.
Yeah, this is the production feedback bit that I think has worked, because one of the comments was like, we need Imperial March music. We need that whenever Chris is being trotted out from backstage. Yeah. Word. Any notes on how we did? I think that the contextual part, I for myself, self-feedback, I'm going to record a not as funny voicemail, but one that's like very specific on, we're just humans. Please give us as much context as you feel relevant. That way we can help clarify the problem and solution as best possible.
If you want to come on the show.
Yeah, if you want to come on the show, come on.
DM Chris specifically.
Oh, he's thanking you backstage for that right now. I can tell you that. Thanks.
Yeah. DM Chris.
We'll call his personal cell phone. Also, this.
Yeah, which is 20.
And a person in the chat who I assume is Jeremy, but who knows, LinkedIn user who has a birthday coming up. Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Here.
Oh my
Happy
God.
birthday.
That was random.
That was crazy.
I got kids. I find stuff in my room sometimes.
That's wild.
Happy birthday.
I like the idea of Chris coming on at the end of the show and just telling us what we all did wrong publicly. That sounds like a
award demerits.
Yeah.
The old feedback finisher Fridays was the triple F program that I instituted, and Chris, in his own way, just said, "No, we're not doing that. I will join whenever I dang well want to," and that's what he's done so far. But it's a good show.
Remember the weakest link? One of us could just get removed.
Yeah.
Fall through the trap door.
Yeah, we know who that'll be first. But I wanted to wish everybody happy. Thanks for tuning in. If you did, Kyle, George, Casey, have a great weekend. We will see everybody except maybe, fingers crossed, Kyle, next Friday. We'll be waiting the word, and have a great weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.